Welcome to Bonehead Weekly, and we don't have an effing topic.
Well, we do. It's just we each have a topic, and we're going to ask the other ones about it. This
Why?
is question.
What the hell would we want to talk to one?
This is Question Roulette. Yeah, that's the name of the episode. Question Roulette. That sounds.
I
good.
want to play the Russian one.
Oh, you're always
Okay.
Russian.
You go get a gun.
Fun.
You go get a gun, and you keep pulling the trigger, and me and James will be here to watch.
Oh, you wouldn't watch.
You're right. I would play with my dog while you did
Actually,
Dude, I wouldn't even have to pull the trigger. Just hold it up, and you would. Choop.
Actually, Chad, could you just stay online? You don't have to actually watch, but just because I'm a big fan of the deer hunter, every time he starts to put the gun toward his head, could you just scream, "Did him out! Did him
That's
out!"
all.
That's all I need.
Oh,
That's all I need. I really don't know why that's.
heart-wrenching.
I don't know why that's not a ride at Universal.
I can't imagine why it's not in Seussland.
You fall out of a simulated helicopter. 1 out of 4 of you loses a leg. I mean, it'd be the
I was going to
kids would-
say.
Probably because Warner Brothers owns it.
Oh, I knew it was a studio issue.
Studio issue, man.
And
So
then before you actually get on the ride, one of you falls drunk nude in the middle of the street. Yeah,
But
it's
Harry
perfect.
Potter, they licensed Harry Potter. I bet they wanted more money for that deer hunter.
yeah, I bet they did.
I don't
It's
remember
all about
Dimbledore.
it's all about IP now, guys. Intellectual property
Oh yeah, and we ain't
we're
got
screwed.
none.
We can't do nothing.
and stock prices. That's really what Hollywood's about.
Hey,
All
then
right.
somebody go, "You got an intellectual property?" I'd fart in my hand and go, "Here."
That's
Huh.
why we're not. I don't know why we don't have sponsors,
Well,
other
we
than
never-
your AA sponsor, Chad. I didn't mean to leave them out.
Well,
I
we
don't
should
remember drinking ranch and Gatorade together.
probably just ask for more sponsors. All right.
Ranch flavored Gatorade.
Who wants
Here
to
on
go?
Bonehead Weekly.
Who wants to go first?
James, you go. Mine's not going to be a long topic.
Well, and actually, it's odd that Chad mentioned when we do segments.
Ranch flavored Gatorade.
Now, when we do segments for our good Australian friends, we call them Bonehead Weekly Fun Size or Funsies, depending on what mood we're in.
Funsies.
And we did one
Really
where
don't.
Chad made the comment that if you're learning history through movies, biopics, it's
Oh,
the
yeah.
wrong way to do it. Well, here actually was a question I had, and I have my answer, but I want to know what y'all think first. There was a big trend for a while where we were literally getting these biopics of musicians, Walk the Line,
Mhm.
all of those, to the
Well,
point
and we're seeing a resurgence of that with the Bohemian Rhapsody and
Yeah.
Rocket Man. Aren't there more coming now?
Yeah. And so with that in mind, and we even got a parody, right? We got Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, which is underrated. It's a lot.
It is.
That being said, with that in mind, who is somebody that hasn't had a biopic made of them that's a musician that you would like to see?
Oh, I got a good one.
We'll go.
Tiny
Joe's
Tim.
confused. Oh,
We got to see a Tiny Tim biopic. That
Why
man is
Tiny
fast.
Tim?
He is fascinating,
My
Joe.
uncle met him.
And he's as creepy as in real life as he was on stage, right? There is no normal about Tiny
Well,
Tim.
my uncle Jack, who's passed away, actually said he was quite nice to him, and they had a long conversation about how he's trying to get his career back and do a whole resurgence in the '80s. And they're at the airport. He would regale you with it for a while if you would ask him about it, but he didn't actually say anything about him being creepy.
He was such a fascinating person. He has a story that would be perfect for Hollywood. I mean, even getting married on the Tonight Show, for God's sakes.
I
And just-
honestly don't know that much about him.
Oh, he was a very unique individual. And I mean, his song, his Tiptoe Through the Tulips, that's what he's known for. That song is his. I mean, I don't know that much about him, just little bits and pieces. But as weird as an odd of the character as he is, and his weird rise to stardom, I think that would make a great film.
and he died relatively young, right? I mean,
Yeah.
64.
He's in his 60s, yeah.
Winnie,
64.
64.
After performing at the Ukulele Festival.
Oh,
Really?
That's the truth. I'm not making that up. Yes, he had just performed at the Ukulele Festival at, let me quote this, Montague Grange Hall in Montague, Massachusetts, and had to be hospitalized. And he did not. He recovered somewhat, but he also evidently was diabetic.
Uh-huh.
So, there you go. But one thing that it also could go into, which I did not know about him, you're right, Chad, there's a lot I don't know. He also preserved tons of music. He was an archivist. He tried to preserve music so it didn't disappear from the lexicon of Americana music. So I learned something. You mentioning that made me look him up and go, oh yeah, there's actually a lot I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you get on IMDb and read his mini bio, there's a lot of fascinating stuff in there, especially how he got his start in a movie called You Are What You Eat and then he made an appearance in Laugh-In, and that kind of skyrocketed him to this weird fandom. It makes it's just a unique character that deserves a movie, in my opinion.
And the Laugh-In itself is a fascinating thing that I don't think a lot of people give enough credit to.
Well, nobody remembers it,
and they should. I mean,
they don't remember it.
You don't need Rowan and Martin. Those were not it was just Laugh-In in itself was such a weird experience. And it's not Rowan and Martin that made that. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, don't you guys think, though? I mean, nobody, them, the Smothers Brothers, I could go on and on. Yeah. It's the thing. And Mel Brooks talked about that, where he tried to get, what's his name?
Red Skelton. That's not Red Skelton.
He wrote for him The Show of Shows. Damn it.
Sid Caesar
tried to get Sid Caesar to go to Hollywood, but the networks just offered him a whole truckload of money. And he couldn't pass it up because his point was, kinescope doesn't last, film does.
Yeah. Mel Brooks' argument was film is eternal and television nobody will remember.
Nobody will remember TV. And I think that's changed somewhat, specifically with certain series. I think some of them are the exceptions to the rule, like you're talking about with Star Trek and some others. But a lot of that IP, intellectual properties we were talking about earlier, which I want to get to with my point, is, they were movies made of them later. And I don't know that people in the 50s and the 60s, specifically in the 50s, thought about syndication.
No.
Right?
No,
and certain things like the Andy Griffith Show, I Love Lucy. I can go down the list. It's because of syndication, Star Trek, that they've never stopped, and they just keep finding new generations. But specifically for Star Trek, the movies help.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
we talk about Star Trek now like it's a cultural icon.
Yeah.
It's its own thing. It wasn't when it came out. No, it wasn't for a decade after.
No, it really argumentatively that when Star Trek hit its heyday, I'd say you're right. It was the 1970s, because there's even reports, and you can go back and see this at certain universities. They would not schedule class during the reruns because people wouldn't show up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Star Trek can get as big as it wants to be, but as far as having that power. Well, we live in a different time now, though. You can stream it whenever you want, right? But
yeah, people are literally streaming it in class.
Yeah.
So
I know I do. I know y'all showed up for me to lecture, but
so
let's see what Cybok's up to this week.
Where did we leave off on that point?
Well,
James wanted to add that I really think.
Yeah,
Tiny Tim. I really do. Even listening to him, the fact that. I had a point and I forgot what it was. Anyway, yeah. So I just his life is amazing, and I think it would make a great movie.
So there've been TV movies, and I think there was something for Showtime, but there's never been I didn't mean this to be a pun, but there's never been the ultimate experience. I don't know why we don't have a Hendrix film.
Yeah, I got a point.
Or a Joplin film for that matter. We got the Doors, but I don't know why we don't have a Hendrix film. That's another guy's.
Yeah, we got Judy Garland, but we didn't get.
Yeah, we've never got
Joplin.
Hendrix. And the thing is with Hendrix specifically, the music just lends itself to the movie, similar to Bohemian Rhapsody, which I think is a flawed film with a really great performance. Everything hinges on the music and the performance, right? Of Rami Malek or whatever his name is. That movie only works because he's really good in it, and the music's awesome because it's Queen.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a very good movie.
I cannot talk about this because I have not seen it.
James, have you seen it?
What? No.
Bohemian Rhapsody. Am I the only one? It's it's not a great movie, guys.
That's why I can't make myself watch it.
Well, no, you should. It's not bad. It's just
I will
Rocket
eventually
Man.
get to it, but there's many other things that I care to see, and it's just not.
Rocket Man's a far
Rocket Man's
superior film.
fantastic. Rocket Man. Film. Oh my God, Rocket Man's amazing.
I have no idea why we haven't seen a Hendrix movie. I know dozens of people from Lawrence Fishburne on have tried to make this happen or have wanted to play Hendrix. I actually, that would be one that I would like to make. I'd like to make a Hendrix film.
Here's a good question.
What?
James, you go answer your question because I'm going to follow up on your question about music because I got a question about music now.
There's one artist that I'm a huge fan of, and I own multiple works by him, and I'm fascinated because his entire career is a roller coaster, and there's complications, and that's Warren Zevon.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
There's been 3 books that were published posthumously, one by his ex-wife, one by a photographer that followed him that did it. That book is called Lawyers, Guns, and Photographs.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one that was written by a professor that studied his music and the time period that he wrote it in parallel. But Warren Zevon is, to me, I mean, Raspberry Beret, everybody knows his Prince. Linda Ronstadt probably gets more credit for Poor, Poor, Pitiful Me than he does.
Mm-hmm.
But he wrote all these great songs. And really the one that gets the most airplay is Werewolves of London. Really, I mean, I love Werewolves of London, but it's not his best song.
No.
And so
what's his best song?
His version of Tiptoe Through the Tulips.
What's his best song?
Oh man, that's
I mean, I love Werewolves of London too. I don't know. I love it.
It's
either that or Lawyers, Guns, and Money.
See, I like Mr. Bad Example. Is one that I really like. I keep a busy schedule. I'm very well acquainted with the 7 Deadly Sins. I keep a busy schedule trying to fit them in.
Excitable Boy.
Excitable Boy is great.
Oh, that's a really well written song. Excitable Boy, they all said.
There's even ones like Carmelita is great. It's sad, but it's great. And that's it. I mean, he has these movies or these songs that can be played. Werewolves of London works for Halloween. So does Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner, which name checks Patty Hearst. His songs have such a cultural awareness about them. And he was, I mean, he literally is credited, if you read the way Wikipedia summarizes it, his career, failed and came back, failed and came back.
Yeah.
And he credits David Letterman with that. But I mean, there's even the belief that he was pretty much doomed early on. Some people theorize that for those that don't know Warren Zevon, he died of cancer, lung cancer.
Yeah.
And they think one of the contributing factors was that he actually worked at his father's carpet store, and he would play in the attic, which was filled with asbestos.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, if you don't know Warren Zevon, he was actually, and James kind of mentioned it briefly, he was the person who, when Paul Schaefer wasn't available, Warren Zevon filled in for him on the David Letterman show.
Yeah.
That's what he's most, honestly, for people our age, that's probably what he's more commonly known for, because a lot of people don't listen to his music.
That or Werewolves of London. They'll know the song. They'll know where.
Yeah, they'll know Werewolves of London. You're right.
His last appearance on, and there's actually, I mean, and this is why I think it'd be a great movie. His last appearance on David Letterman, he gave him his guitar. He left it. I don't think it was on air. He left,
and he gave him the whole hour. Letterman gave him the whole hour.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, because he was dying, and that was the thing. Like, they thought they might be able to do some treatments, but they knew that when it lasts very long, like they would extend his life, but they couldn't. So he said, "No, I'm going to do one last album," which was The Wind.
Yep.
And then the other thing, though, that I find fascinating about him was they asked him in an interview, how do you approach this? How do you deal with it? And he was very frank. He was like, it's coming. I really just hope I live long enough to see the next James Bond
movie. Yeah. And he would get up and eat bacon and eggs for every meal.
Yeah. And I mean, and really, and by no means, God, I wish we had 20 more years of Warren Zevon, but it was one of those things.
And he looked like a guy who you would walk up to and he would literally smell like bacon and eggs.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
he also had mental illness. Are you going to get to that, James?
Yeah. I mean,
he and Billy Bob both have the OCD.
Yeah. And that's, but he's such a fascinating, and there's some people that he was a member of a band for a while and that had some complications, and there's just so many stories there. But I find it fascinating that, I mean, when I tell people I do prefer Warren Zevon's version of Raspberry Beret over Prince, I might as well say, like, don't get me wrong, Prince is a phenomenal musician. Purple Rain, all that. No, it won't take anything away from Prince. That being said, Warren Zevon wrote it. Wrote Raspberry Beret, not taking anything away from. So anyway, I just think the back and
I like
forth
them
of
both.
That, yeah, but they play differently. I should say
they play differently. It's the same song. They play differently. I mean,
they play differently. His is, and it's the same thing with Linda Ronstadt's "Poor Poor Pitiful Me."
one of them was a lyrical genius. The other one was a musical genius. I mean, Prince was a musical genius. So
he was a performer.
Yeah.
I don't think Warren Zevon was a musician that wasn't always a quote unquote performer.
And Warren Zevon just did not have the musical talent or lyrical talent to come up with such a great song as P Control.
I'm not going to touch that. Anyway, don't besmirch Prince.
Since we got lawyers, guns, and money,
I had a friend in high
has
school.
hit the fan.
I had a friend in high school who would drive around and make me listen to P Control on a loop, and I'm like, other than the fact that he is saying that part of a woman's anatomy, what is good about this song? And he would just play. He goes, man, it rocks. No, you're playing it because he says the P word. Sorry.
Prostate?
No. Yeah, women's prostate. Yeah.
Prostate control. It's actually, it was used as an ad. Prince wrote that actually originally for an ad for a GNC supplement. Prostate control.
Yeah.
Look it up. It's all true. I'm not making any of it up.
So I got a question for you all, since we're talking about musicians, because I've been thinking about this, because I've been listening to a lot of music lately, more so than I normally do. And if you don't know me personally, I don't actually listen to music. It's not something that brings me calmness. I can't listen to music, but I have been a lot lately. And I started thinking about how the Beatles are kind of held on this pedestal above all other musicians. It's true. Is there a musician who you think should be up there with them in terms of their greatness? Because I do have one.
Who is it?
In my personal opinion, it's a person, it's a band.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I can't figure out why people don't.
Oh, he's going to talk about the Monkees.
No. I think this might come out of left field for you two guys. They have so many great songs, and I don't think that they're held in the same admiration as the Beatles, and that's Sly and the Family Stone. I think they don't. I really don't think they get credit for how amazing their entire catalog of music is. I mean, people know people know Everyday People. People know some of their other hits, but like the song, like The Poet, people don't talk about that song. I can't believe I'm blanking off the top of my head, because this was just a random topic that came up. The Sly and the Family Stones have such an amazing list of songs, and I don't know why they're not held up in the same list as the Beatles. I just never have been able to figure that out. Do you all have an option? I'm going to look up their catalog real quick.
I mean, I always think the Rolling Stones take a backseat to the Beatles, but pretty much everybody remembers the Rolling Stones, so it's kind of hard to. Everybody takes a backseat to the Beatles, though.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, the Beatles are amazing, but there are other bands who I think deserve that same admiration, and I don't feel like Sly and the Family Stone gets that.
I can't follow you there with Sly and the Family Stone.
Have you not? I mean, have you? I disagree, because they have 4 disc worth of amazing music.
Yeah.
Turn Me Loose, Milady, Dance to the Music, Color Me True. I mean, Music Lover, Love City. I mean, they have such a great eclectic list of songs, and I just don't understand why they're not held in that same regard.
I think there's 2. One I'm going to say jokingly, and the other one I'm going to say seriously, musician wise, that I don't think get enough credit. Jokingly, I will say the Trashmen. because they're the only people with the intestinal fortitude to do a song of an ornithological nature and link it to linguistics. Otherwise, though, and I mean this seriously, somebody that I think does not get enough credit, and I would argue has had a quote unquote Beatles type influence, is actually Weird Al. And I'm saying that honestly, because there is how many other acts have lasted 40 years, created original music as well as parodies. I mean, he's known for the parodies, but he has sold hit, in the top 10 in 4 different decades. Still active.
CNR is still one of my favorite songs of all time.
And so I'm being honest. I think that people think of it as comedy, but Weird Al, I mean, he's performed Peter and the Wolf. He is a musician. He is honestly brilliant. And I mean that in that he's valedictorian level, that's all true. It's all. And so I think that would be my argument is I think people, unless you're a diehard Weird Al fan, people dismiss what he's been able to do. But when the people that you parody have faded away, I mean, and you're still going and you're still adding new music and you're still critiquing society through songs and actually books and other stuff now too. I mean, I think our
but
culture,
I don't know if I could put him in the Beatles level.
See, I would argue that there's as far, let me justify this a little bit, because my argument would be who else could have, like, Beatles existed before MTV, obviously. Weird Al is able to take over every time he does a new album. He used to be when MTV played music, and actually later, after that VH1, they would let him take over for 4 hours, and they would play. He would basically VJ, play his song, play the original he based it on, do all that stuff, play some of his original. I mean, that was a level of power. Michael Jackson pulled that off. Michael Jackson and Weird Al were able to pull that stuff off.
And the other thing about Weird Al too, and this is coming strictly from the parody musician element of his career. There have been many parody musicians. They have one hit or a few and they fizzle out. Yep. I mean, there have been a lot of parody musicians and nobody talks about them. Weird Al's still going, and people still know the name Weird Al Yankovic.
Well, I think as far as parody musicians, he is probably the best of all time. I don't disagree. It's just lifting him up to the level of the Beatles.
I think when you think of, I'm talking about many different element of pedestals. I mean, he is up there in terms of rock and roll and parody. He is. He should be held up there.
Well, yeah.
And by the way, Frank's 2000-inch TV.
Do you think, which is original? It's not a parody,
again, right? Yeah. CNR and Frank's it's 2 of my favorite songs, and they're originals.
Do you think, and this is going to sound terrible, but do you think had the Beatles, quote unquote, broke up after their boy band phase, after the Screaming Women at the Airport phase?
Yeah.
Would they be held in the record they are now? No. I don't think so either. I mean,
because you never would have made it to the White Album.
That's what I was about to say. I mean, and I'm not dissing their early stuff.
Or Sgt. Pepper or anything. Yeah, no, you wouldn't have got the transition to whatever that next level that didn't exist till they created it.
Yeah, and I was about to say, and I think that maybe that's what I'm getting at, Joe. Maybe that's both of these entities, the Beatles, Weird Al, they created something that didn't necessarily exist before. Now, they're not the same.
Yeah.
They're not, but they did something that was not, I mean, like Chad said, you did a parody, it played on Dr. Demento, if you're lucky. And you would do, you could parody 1 or 2 things or do a couple original songs. You could, probably Guns N' Moses did okay with their parodies. You had some other ones, and you had, Sherman and things like that, the musicians before Weird Al. But I don't think any of them nailed it the way that Weird Al has. And so maybe it's that creativity thing that I'm focused on. Is that the Beatles, like I said, if the Beatles would have stopped with Love, Love Me Do, again, not knocking it, I don't know. That being said, if we wouldn't have got, like you said, to the White Album, to Sgt. Pepper's, would we look at them and go, those people are geniuses?
No, but at the same time, we got to that point with them. So yeah, they should be held as geniuses. But that's why I'm saying Sly and the Family Stone, should be. And by the way, I'm going to kick myself in the ass because now that I've had chances to read, I can't believe I left out I Want to Take You Higher, Summer of Soul, Hot Fun in the Summertime.
That's actually my favorite.
Thank you for letting me be myself again. I mean, Sly and the Family Stones have so many amazing songs that I think are right there comparable to the Beatles.
By the way, I wanted to jump back real quick. Warren Zevon, I know what I'd want to title the film if somebody asked me what that autobiography needs to be titled.
Yeah.
This is actually one of my favorite Warren Zevon songs that nobody talks about. I was in the house when the house burned down.
That's
I
awesome.
love that song. If you've not heard I Was in the House when the House Burned Down, listen to that song.
And that's how he got cancer, because he was in the attic.
But he didn't burn.
He didn't burn. He was in the attic.
But anyway, that was the question I had. So I like you all were saying, there's been such a resurgence. I was like, well, we should probably talk about that. I don't think
we're getting the Aretha Franklin one's coming,
which I hope doesn't suck, because I love Aretha Franklin.
As do I.
All right, who wants to go next?
I'll bring mine up real quick because it's kind of it's an easy talk about, and then we can move on. I've been watching a lot of Burt Reynolds lately. Don't ask me why. I've been in that mood.
Dom DeLuise's friend, Burt Reynolds?
Yeah.
No, so he's not talking. He's talking about Ned Beatty's friend, Burt Reynolds.
And I think we all three are huge fans of Burt Reynolds as an
Hal Needham's friend, Burt Reynolds.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of my biggest regrets was not meeting him.
Yeah.
I didn't have much choice about it. He went and died like a bastard.
Now, I've been kind of curious about your takes on this because I don't know how you feel about it. What do you think of Burt Reynolds as a director?
Let's see. He directed, what was that TV movie he did with his resurgence in the late 90s, early 2000s? I can't remember the name of it. It's
Hard
like
Time?
Or something, a producer or something. I don't remember. He played a producer, I thought.
1998, it was Hard Time. There was also The Last Producer, which was in
that Last Producer is what I'm talking about. That's pretty forgettable. What did he direct? Gator?
He directed Gator.
Yeah.
He directed The End.
The End's fun.
The End is fun, but there are serious problems with that movie in terms of its direction.
Well, I don't know he's going to be remembered for his directing.
No, and I mean there are. And by the way, if you all have not seen The End, which is directed, but was it written by Burt as well?
I don't know.
No, it was written by Jerry Belson. If you haven't seen The End, if for any reason to watch it, get halfway through and see the introduction of Dom DeLuise.
Yeah.
Dom DeLuise does pure comedy by himself with very little interjection from Burt for a solid 10 minutes, guys. It is a one shot on Dom, and he is killing it. I just love that scene. It's one of my favorite Dom DeLuise scenes. But no, I've been watching and I've just looked at his directorial efforts, and he has a few.
Sharky's Machine.
Sharky's Machine might be the only one that I will say he did decent direction. But
I have to go back and watch Sharky's Machine.
Gator, The End.
Gator's okay. What's wrong with Gator?
Oh, Gator's terrible in terms of its direction.
I have to go back and I haven't seen it in 20 years, Chad. I don't remember.
There's some weird
about it.
He does some weird direction. There's like one scene where he puts I don't know what else to call it. He does the Barbara Walters. He puts Vaseline all over the screen and is just centered on like his legs, and it's stuck there for a good solid amount of time, and there's no reason for it. There's not even an artsy reason for that shot.
Well, the thing is, in defense of Burt Reynolds, he's not a great actor either.
No,
he's a movie star.
He is a movie star.
He's a personality.
No. Angry.
No, I'm not angry.
James, he's getting angry. Look at him. He's bulging.
But he's a movie star. He's not a great actor either. Now, he's been good in a lot of stuff.
You know, for example, what would you say his best role? Well, no, I don't know his best role would be considered Boogie Nights, but
I don't think it is Boogie Nights.
It's not.
It's him not doing much in Boogie Nights.
I didn't know.
I didn't know
he never finished watching the movie.
I didn't know he was close to winning. Like, I guess he was nominated, but they thought he would actually win. But he came out before it ever came out and said what a horrible movie Boogie Nights was.
He won the Golden Globe, but he didn't win the Oscar that year.
Yeah, allegedly it soured the Oscar committee on him because he was attacking the movie they were going to nominate.
He attacks it in his book. I read his autobiography. He has nice things to say, but he's never actually watched the whole. Well, now he won't, but he's never watched the whole movie.
Yeah.
By the way, the thing that I want to say, do you know when you cast Burt Reynolds, like what your role needs to require?
What?
It needs to require Burt Reynolds. You know when I had the most fun watching Burt Reynolds? I'm excluding Smoking the Bandit and all. Within, let's say, since 2010.
I can tell you when I had the most fun watching Burt Reynolds, but you answer your question.
Since 2010, the most fun I had watching Burt Reynolds was Archer, where he played.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
And Archer is obsessed with Burt Reynolds, Smokey and the Bandit, and all that stuff. And he finds out that his mother is dating Burt Reynolds.
The most fun I had watching Burt Reynolds is switching channels. I'm sorry, that's him. He was at his peak in terms of what little comedic timing he had in switching channels. I just love him in that movie. It's one of my most endearing movies of Burt Reynolds at switching channels. I would say, I'm gonna go ahead. Sorry.
No,
go.
Well, here, I'll say what I was gonna say. Another thing Burt Reynolds doesn't get much credit for, and it goes back to him being a movie star, that he's not an actor, he's a movie star, is that people wanted just his voice. And people forget that he did voice work on Christmas specials, quite a few of them.
Yeah.
A Frosty and the Snowman movie, he's the narrator for. A Magic Christmas, he's the voice of. He did all sorts of voiceovers. And what a lot of people don't remember, unless you're a gamer, is he is the voice of a character in Grand Theft Auto Vice City. And so you can drive around, steal cars, and listen to Burt Reynolds tell you, what to do with your life, which is how I want to go, really. And also Saints Row, the third. So, I mean, he did, and he was picked for those video games. It's not like he was auditioning. It was, do you think Burt Reynolds will do this? Because they were Burt Reynolds.
Do you think his
needed
best
to cast Burt Reynolds?
Do you think his best performance is Deliverance?
It's a toss up, actually. It's Deliverance as far as probably not being him, and The Last Movie Star, which is a very flawed movie, but it's one of his best performances. And it came out in 2017, and it's a shame. The movie does not live up to his performance in it. But The Last Movie Star and Deliverance, as far as actual acting.
And I haven't seen it, but I've heard things about his role in Nickelodeon with Peter Bogdanovich.
Nickelodeon's a boring movie.
Okay. And I've never seen his performance in it.
It's a boring movie.
Okay. I've heard that talked about. So
and Bogdanovich has bitched about it.
Yeah.
Can I at least mention, because it's the screenplays by Blake Edwards, and I feel the need to mention
Cop for Hire?
No, City Heat.
You mean
Burt
Rent-A-Cop?
Reynolds?
Rent-A-Cop. Sorry, Joe. I should be smacked.
Liza Minnelli.
As a prostitute.
I loved that as a kid.
I did
that's
too.
Awful now.
It's on Amazon Prime, Joe.
I'm good.
No, City Heat was supposed to be a huge movie when it came out. It was Burt Reynolds, Clint Eastwood, Jane Alexander, Madeline Kahn, Rip Torn. That's a great cast. It, by the way, made $38.3 million off a $25 million budget, which back in those studio math days, it did. Okay.
Yeah. Well, they don't. That's something I want to get to too. Is that they don't care about. They care about the stock price.
Yeah. So, but I wanted to mention that because that's an entire Clint Eastwood chapter.
Is that any good, by the way? Because I've never seen City Heat.
I don't think I've ever seen it either.
I have seen it, but it has been, because if it's a Clint Eastwood movie, I watched it with my father through anything before Gran Torino. I watched with my father at some point.
And I can't believe I haven't seen it because it has Art LaFleur in it. Anything with Art LaFleur, I'm going to watch.
I watched it, I think probably because on TBS back in the day. And I can remember my dad going, well, it's not terrible. By the way, this tells you a little bit something about my father. and his view. He loved Clint Eastwood. He loved John Wayne. But my father's least favorite of both of those was The Searchers for John Wayne and Unforgiven for Clint Eastwood. Why? Well, they're just sad. It's because they're flawed, right? They're terrible. They're not great people in those movies. And my father was of the mentality that, you know, he wanted his Cowboys white hat, you know.
Yeah.
Heroes. Anyway.
So if we're ready to, are we ready to move on? Was that just your
That was
question?
mine.
Chad?
Yeah, I'm good. Nobody really answered it.
What do you mean it didn't?
No, I
answer?
guess we did answer it. He's just a movie star. He's not really known as a director.
I don't think, I don't think he's a bad actor. I think he's a great personality.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic. I mean, he probably guest hosted for Carson more than people remember. I think he's one of the top 5 guest hosts.
I honestly forgot that he did that.
He did the Tonight Show all the time. He's a superstar.
Can I ask a question? And I mean this,
Like
and
no one
I
else?
don't
go ahead.
know. I don't know if you all know the answer to this. Why did he want to direct?
I think
Because
everyone does.
Everybody wants to.
I would rather paper cut my gums than you tell me I have to direct something.
Burt
I
Reynolds
agree.
wouldn't want to do everything. I mean, my God, the man produced a game show where the set was his freaking living room. They recreated his living room on set, and it was Pictionary.
Yeah,
That's
Win,
true.
lose, or draw.
Yeah, he did I think Burt Reynolds, in his heyday, he wanted to do everything. I mean,
Which is fair, and I guess that's something different than, because I literally, like, again, my dream would be to write a screenplay or it'd be to write a novel, and then somebody else has to direct the screenplay.
My thing about Burt Reynolds is not only was he just a movie star, he was a worker. I honestly believe Burt Reynolds liked the work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I've heard other people say that about, not just about Burt Reynolds, but that they don't know what to do if they're not working. And matter of fact, I think I read an interview several years ago with Jamie Lee Curtis. It's probably about the time Virus came out, and she made the comment that she wasn't taking as many parts as she used to take. She wasn't interested. And her line was, "Once I've realized that I like myself, I don't want to be other people as much. It has to be a better script."
Mm-hmm.
Now, was her saying that after Virus came out linked? I don't know. But anyway.
Here's my question. I've been watching a lot of Netflix.
Calm down, right? You've calmed down.
Amazon films, Hulu stuff. And I have to do those reviews it's not just horror films. I have to do a weekly review for Scarefest. And you're always constantly, and I just finished that 3-part thing of Fear Street. And I like the availability and the access, like everyone else does, to streaming. I like that there's new programming there. But a lot of the movies are just not good.
No.
Even though they're spending just as much, if not more money on them. And here's what I'm going to tell you all that I think it feels wrong. I don't know their process, but there used to be something called a development exec, right? And you went through that and you're like, well, does this work? And rewrites. And I don't know how Netflix works. They may have a team of those, but I want a job. They used to be the most hated person in Hollywood, right? The executive in charge of a development. Blah, 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 blah. They need them.
Yeah.
Because I'll use this just because it's fresh on my mind, but there are dozens because I've watched so many. The Fear Street, they shot 3 movies. All of them are an hour and 45 to 55 minutes. All 3 of them. There's no reason for them to be that long. And it's convoluted. I get that if you're a fan of the book, but it just somewhere along the way should have said, let's streamline this. It doesn't necessarily have to make sense, but let's at least kind of streamline. Let's try to tighten this script. Where is the script development happening in this process? Because I see it with a ton of those movies.
If I'm not mistaken, and James, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
But from what I've heard with Netflix, you can pitch them the idea and they'll say, go for it. And then they pretty much stay out of the control. They
Then
don't
why,
have the,
in the name of Satan's jockstrap, are we not pitching stuff to Netflix right this second?
Well, because
I
we
don't
don't have
know.
access. We don't have.
Yeah, we don't have
we
access.
don't
No.
have
but
representation. I'd love
they
to.
pretty much don't do content control as in order for, you know, the produce. It's just them making the movie, and whatever they get, and then they give it to Netflix, and Netflix is going to make some money off of it. And if they don't get the ratios that they're looking for, they just stop making them. And if they do get the ratios,
So, but back to what I get what you're saying. I just
I agree with
I'm
you. There
trying
needs
to
to be
think-
something. There needs to
trying
be
to-
someone there to go, okay, this as an idea, let's tweak it a little bit.
let's take the shows out. So they've done some really good shows. I can't argue with that. There's been some, I loved Queen's Gambit. I that's a really well done show. I like Stranger Things. What's another good Netflix show? There's been several.
Well, there's been a couple movies on that. I will
There's
defend
been
his.
two.
I will defend His House as being.
His House is okay.
I haven't seen His House. I
But-
can't think of a good Netflix movie that I've seen.
Mank
Mank. Yeah, sorry. Mank's Netflix.
and The
right?
Irishman.
No,
I like The
Can't-
Irishman.
I can't give you The Irishman. I hated it.
I enjoyed it. All 14
Okay.
hours of it.
Good for you.
No,
I
was gonna
did.
say,
I
no,
think it's good. I really do.
couldn't-
In fact, it's to me, and I actually like that it's 4 hours long. It took 2 or 3 nights to do, but it was
It did me
okay.
too.
It was okay because I just enjoyed hanging out with all those characters. So I really enjoyed it. Now, could they have cut 30 minutes out of that? Probably, but it's
Yeah.
written on Scorsese. And
I don't want to say it's Scorsese's worst film. It's not. I found parts of it enjoyable, but there was parts in it that I was
Mank
pulled
and The
out of it.
Irishman. And I'm
Okay.
trying my best to find another.
I was gonna say,
Amazon. I what have they done that
it's a series. It's The Boys. I will defend The Boys, but I
Boys.
agree. It's hard to defend movies.
I
It is
want to
hard
get
defend something.
in terms of TV. I want to recommend, and if you haven't seen it, check it out. Frank of Ireland.
no,
on
But
Amazon.
But I think, I said I'll defend His House because I think that's the first horror movie we've seen in some time that had something new to say. We've had a lot of horror movies made that had something to say, but it's not something we hadn't seen.
My problem with Netflix is
before.
that they really do. They don't have a content person. They just throw shit at the wall
Well,
and see what
but-
sticks.
But do you think part of that is, and this is getting to answering that question, do you think part of that is that now we've went from the old studio system, if we look at the gestalt of the history, right? Where if you're not with this studio or this studio or this studio, and then we went to the drive-in where, oh, I can film this, and if I can get this local drive-in to show it. And now we veered so far because there is so much, and you would think it would work in our favor. And by that, I mean
content.
people
There's so
like
much
that.
content. Yeah.
Well, there's so much to feel because now you've got, I mean, you've got, let's use
Oh.
Stephen King. I'll use
Oh, by the
Stephen
way,
King.
which streaming service did Dolomite premiere on?
Netflix.
Netflix.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
But is that, you know, when, let's go back and when it was Netflix was your option for streaming, right? I mean, there were other ones, but really Netflix. Now you've got Amazon Prime.
Mhm.
You got
Which
you've
is
got
spending $1 billion on a new Lord of the Rings series. $1 billion.
billion with
Which
the
we're
beat.
gonna
Yeah.
get in 2022.
And they
finally.
and then hold on, like to go along with that, was it who? No, it was the Peacock, which is a whole other NBC Universal streaming
Yep.
service, is going to spend $750 million, 700 million, somewhere around there, for 3 Exorcist films.
Woof.
Netflix spent almost $500 million to do 2 Knives Out movies.
Yeah,
450 million, gentlemen, something like that in the
Yeah.
ballpark.
something like that.
Which
yeah.
and all of that, and I'm all for it. By the way, I'll watch.
Boy,
That
yeah,
being
Knives Out.
said, that's what gives me pause. Is that at what point is the competition not for us as viewers, but it's we got to get this before they get it. And so I'm not going to worry about your script quality. I need you to sign this dotted line. So your movie will premiere, your project will premiere on Netflix instead of HBO Max, or And so this original content that's not already owned by the studios, like, you know, we already own X, so we can make
Well,
sequels to it.
IP, which is what I was
Yeah.
talking about earlier.
Yeah.
This is what it's going to come back to, because it's all about two things. It's all about intellectual property. Disney owns 2/3 of the IP,
Yeah.
famous IP, right at a half to 2/3, I would imagine, if you actually.
Is this Harry
yeah.
Potter? Is this Harry Potter's fault, or is this Marvel's fault, or is this?
No, I don't know that it's anybody's fault, and there's no one. This is just where the world is gone, because James is right. We've went through what we had, the dream factories from the 20s and the 30s, and that crumbled in the 60s and gave us the 70s, which gave us a lot of independent cinema. And you were able to shoot a movie for a few $100,000, and he's absolutely right, which is a lot of money then, but you could go do the circuit, drive-in circuit, grindhouse circuit, and actually make a profit. You can't do that anymore. The only place for these people to go, because the theatrical experience is for the most part dead, unless you're making 3 or 4 kinds of movies, and they're trying to kill it every way they can right now, with them being able to. Black Widow now is being sued. I mean, she's suing them.
Yeah.
Because she's saying she's not going to get the back end on her 20 million. Or whatever hell on top of that.
Yeah, which again,
I'm not
Marvel fan. She's
Scarlett.
right. She's right.
I'm not begrudging her. I don't know what their contract looks like. Good for her, whatever that is. That's me. And a lot of it's cool, because I told you I have easy access. I enjoy the easy access. It's with children, it's hard to get out. It's easy to do, but
by the way,
there is a ton of content
for a handful of movies.
And a handful of them that are watchable.
So, you know, and just to list a couple more that I really enjoyed.
I guess it's always been that way.
I don't want to say really enjoyed. I did enjoy Extraction with Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah, that one. That's the action shoot 'em up one. I can't even tell you the plot.
By the way,
Bright. I don't think Bright deserves a sequel.
No, that's a really good idea that I don't once again think I needed a rewrite.
Yeah, I don't know how you all felt about this, because we have not talked about it. I strongly disliked America the Motion Picture.
I
haven't seen it yet.
Okay, well, sorry. You all watch and let me know. You'll probably like it.
I sent a trailer of it to.
Is that on Netflix?
Yes. Yeah.
I did not laugh once. So
ain't seen it.
Do you think part of the problem, Joe, and this is just popping into my head, is that you're aware of it now? Like before, if something came direct to DVD, you had to see it, right? It had to be on the shelf. You had to see it. And now now you're looking for something to watch, and you have to go buy all of these things.
Yeah, and once again, the cream always rises to the top.
Yeah, well,
usually.
And I was thinking,
but there's just a lot of stuff that I don't know should have ever been shot.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that got to me, like, and I'm going to use his house just because it really had an impact on me, but it was not advertised. Like, it was not, you know, the top movie of the week that they always put up. Like a couple weeks ago, it was. And by the way, no offense meant Liam Neeson, but it was his Ice Road Trucker movie.
I have a friend at work who went off on a 10-minute tangent about. I haven't seen it. I haven't watched it. I like the Liam Neeson shoot 'em ups for the most part. I mean, they're forgettable. But he was telling me just how bad it was. I haven't seen it.
I haven't, and honestly, but I mean, it was, oh, you log on to Netflix, you're going to spend 10 minutes watching this trailer because it's going to autoplay.
Mm-hmm.
Ice Road, by the way, that's the name of it.
Ice Road, yes. And so, but I was sitting there, they didn't do that with his house. And I was like, it's because it doesn't star anybody. It doesn't, you know, they need you to see that Liam Neeson movie before you hear that review, right?
Yeah.
They need, and I think that's part of it. I think, and
I enjoyed Space Sweepers too. That's a great, that was a very enjoyable Netflix movie. Sorry.
It makes me really nostalgic, and it's very odd to me that Netflix did the last Blockbuster documentary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It makes me,
which was 10 minutes too long.
Well, it makes me increasingly nostalgic though for video stores, because, and we've talked about this before.
At least you could go to one place and look.
Well, and you could go, listen, this is what I like. and they would be like, well, we'll try that.
And I'll be honest with you. Go ahead, James. Sorry.
And that's how I discovered, a lot of independent films. And I mean, one that was independent and then became bigger, even though there's an entire documentary about how crazy the director was. Boondock Saints. I literally went into it. They were like, what are you looking for? As the guy walked around restocking, and he just said, what are you looking for? And I'm like, I want a stupid action movie that I'm not going to think about. And where and he goes, you want a couple laughs in it? I said, that'd be great. And he said, Boondock Saints, we just got it in. He goes, I recommend it. It's a lot of fun. And so that's how I was exposed to that. And now, of course, it's a cult film. Yeah. But when it was a Blockbuster exclusive, when it first came out, and they had 3 copies, which at the time for a Blockbuster exclusive was not many copies.
Right.
But I watched it. It was, and I literally recommend it to other people. I think we've lost that because, like you said, I mean, there's movies that you all have mentioned that I haven't had time to watch because it's no longer an event. It's no longer, I'm going to go to the movies. I'm going to see this. Like, and we've talked about this. I want to see Ghostbusters Afterlife in the movie theater.
Yeah.
That's an event. It needs to be an event. And I think that's probably why I loved His House. I don't think it needed to be in a theater. And I think a lot of these movies that we're seeing don't need to be in a theater. I'm not saying they shouldn't exist. It is not, I'm not a gatekeeper. I should never be a gatekeeper. But let me give an example of one that was going to be in theaters and my kids wanted to see and then premiered on Amazon, which worked out well. And that's, was it My Spy, Dave Bautista?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a fun family movie. It's got 3 explosions in it. Cool.
I actually have seen it.
Yeah. I mean, my kids liked it. I laughed with them. It was great. We watched it as a family. Would I have felt okay paying $7 a ticket for a family of 4? That's 28. Sorry. $28 to go see it. No, it probably would have bothered me. But watching it so is that what we're seeing?
I think
because
so.
I don't have the expectation anymore. Like if it's on something I'm already paying for, which by the way, and we've talked about this as well, all the things we subscribe to, we're getting awful close to it being cable again.
Well, it absolutely is cable. And by the time
I swore
internet on it, it's more than cable.
I swore when this all hit, I was like, I'm going to have 2 streaming services. I have 5. Now, granted, 3 of those are on a trial basis. When the trial is over, they're gone. And I'm probably going to get rid of another one. So my statement will hold true. But right now I have 5 streaming services and I never once thought I would have that many.
See, and that's the challenge I have is I got HBO Max. I'm probably going to eventually drop it, but Dana really wanted to see In the Heights. And it was near our anniversary. And I said, well, I said,
and that's my favorite one. HBO Max is my favorite one. I can always find something on there.
And like I used it to show Silas had never seen The Shadow. And I want to get the special edition DVD, but that's a side note, a special edition Blu-ray. But anyway, so I showed him The Shadow. Yeah, it's great. But that's the entire thing. Like we spend so much time saying, what do we want to watch? Yeah. And I was like, Netflix, Disney Plus, CBS All Access. I don't have right now. I'll renew when a certain show comes back.
You mean Paramount?
Yes, I'm sorry. Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus, sir. Just Paramount.
Yes.
So Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Peacock, which lovingly is free unless you pay the premium and get a couple extra things, but I'm doing free right now on that. But you're right. There's just too much. Now, Peacock is great, by the way, near Halloween because they put on all the classic Universal horror films. If you don't know that, check it out. If they do what they did last year, because I watched them all.
I think I have most of them on Blu-ray.
And I will need to get that if that's the case. I mean, for free. If it's free, I'm not paying for it.
Yeah, no, they did all the, like if you wanted certain things and if you had to have it without commercial interruptions, but like we did The Invisible Man with quote unquote commercial interruptions. That movie's an hour and 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Something like that, yeah.
I think they did 2 commercial breaks in it that were 60 seconds each. It was literally perfect. I was like, no, that gives me time to go grab a drink.
Not as bad as Hulu.
No. To go back to, I want to go back real quick. It's kind of, I think it's tying in. It's going back to your video store thing and what Netflix does. They have your recommendations. That being said, I have a hard time with the recommendations they provide. It's always the most popular stuff, regardless of what you're watching. And again, just like Joe said, the majority of that shit is not something I want to watch.
Well, the algorithm doesn't work.
The algorithm does not work.
It does
And
not
even
work
when
as well as the fat guy behind the counter at Blockbuster.
And that's what I was getting at. So there's two things about the video stores that I miss. This one, I hated at the time when I would go into the video store. Let's say I didn't get there as early as I wanted to, or something happened. I would go in there and copies of the movie that I wanted to see were gone.
Yeah.
Prime example, bad movie, but prime example. I missed Dracula Dead and Loving It in the theater. I waited for it to come out on VHS tape. I went to the video store the weekend. They had one copy. It was gone. That just made me want to watch that movie more. You don't have that now. You can watch anything simply by clicking here. That option's gone. And then, and what Joe just said, the other option is, and you mentioned it too, James, we don't have that person who is a movie geek like us to talk to and go, I need something to watch. This is what I'm looking for. Here, find this. I saw some of the best movies that I had never heard of doing that method. We don't have that now. Even, one of the prime examples of hidden gems of movies that you wouldn't even think to watch, and that for the most part are turds, but you find some enjoyment out of them. Amazon Prime. I will always plug Amazon Prime for that back aisle VHS tape that you were looking for. That being said, Amazon Prime does not make it easy to find. You don't have that. You have to dig. You have to go through several different movies to look at that movie, other movies like it, to find that. And that's how I found some weird movies that I found somewhat enjoyable. Joe, don't roll your eyes. Even though Uncle Peckerhead, I loved Uncle Peckerhead. Uncle Pecker, or whatever it was. What was it called, Joe? I forgot.
But you're the fan.
I just liked it. I can't remember the name.
I never
of
made it through it.
It's not a good movie, but it was one of those ones I stumbled across of going, what is this? Oh my God, I'm finding some entertainment out of this because there was nothing on. I agree with Joe. It's not good. But again, it's just, you don't have that person telling you, oh, you want to see something shit, go watch Uncle Pecker. You have to dig for it.
Yeah, and I was about to say, and I think that's it. That's why the algorithm can't work, right? And
you can't even dig in Netflix.
Well, I don't even think they use it. I think Chad's right. They don't even use it. I think it just really wants you to watch what what other people.
Guys, prime example. I don't know if have you all ever created individual profiles in Netflix, or does the whole family just use one profile?
No, well, Dana and I usually just use
profile.
one profile, but like the kids have their own. But that's part of
go ahead.
It doesn't do anything. Like
no. So for me, my whole family uses one, and most of it's the kids stuff. Like they watched Yes Day, and a bunch of they watched kid stuff on it, and I occasionally was watching something for myself on that one, but I was getting recommendations that were all the kids related. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to create a whole one just for me. And I put the horror movies and the action films and the shows that I watch. Guys, the recommendations are the exact same on both accounts. The algorithm does not work. I'm sorry. This is three old codgers complaining about technology, but it's true. I get the same recommendations.
Well, I love the access. So in defense, I love the access. It's easier for me. It's easier for my wife to watch something with the kids. It's easier to find things. I mean, I've got to figure out a way to either pay for HBO Max, which I can pay for, but I've not done it yet, or I've got to go find a babysitter to see Suicide Squad. Now, I prefer to go see it in the theater.
That's the one I've been okay watching some of these at home. Suicide Squad's the one I wish I was in the theater seeing it.
Godzilla is probably one you would probably have read. I haven't seen it on the small screen, but it's so stupid, but it's enjoyable when it's 50 foot high.
Yeah. Now that being said, August 5th at 5 p.m. Once the kids go to bed, I'm watching Suicide Squad here because I can't get to a theater.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that, but I really wanted to see it in the theater. It's the first comic book movie I've been actually eager to see in years.
Do you, Joe, I'm going to have to push back on your access thing a little bit. Not so much, I guess, for movies, but sort of for movies. I don't know if the access is where I want it to be, in that there's still so much that, It goes back to video store. Wild
Did
and
you just
Woolly
say
video.
push back?
Yeah, he said push
yes.
back.
Oh my God, are we in a meeting?
Yes.
Are we
Let-
going
let
to
me
talk
speak-
about
Let me
synergy?
let me speak to that, Jeff.
Oh,
no,
Jesus.
no, but honestly, I'm gonna
Cohesiveness, gentlemen. Cohesiveness.
Oh, God.
synchronize your expectation. No, anyway, honestly, I think the problem is
We'll
that
need to meet. We'll need to talk. We'll need to table that. Let's meet back in a month to discuss this.
I think about Wild and
I'm
Woolly
quitting.
video, which used to
Keep
be
going.
in Louisville.
Yeah.
Which used to be in Louisville, and they had weird videos, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's nowhere, unless Netflix wants it, unless Amazon wants it. Like, there's no.
Amazon Prime's the only one that has that. In my
But
opinion.
even then, they don't have like
They don't
and
have
that's- that-
everything.
No,
the
they
death
don't.
of the video store means that I can't now. It might be that I had to drive half a mile or half an hour to get it, but I could find, like I was saying about this the other day. I was like, oh, I'd like to see Lars von Trier's The Kingdom again.
Mhm.
Good luck,
Buy it.
because yeah, you're gonna have to buy it. And by the way, good luck finding it.
Yeah,
because,
there's
you know,
something I
the-
looked for the other day, and then I ended up on eBay and realized I
The
didn't
old
want to pay for it.
VHS copy that somebody may have digitized to a DVD and will sell you under the table is about your only option unless it gets re-released. And I was saying about that. There were a couple the TV show that comes to mind, and it's why literally HBO Max, I get mad when I think about paying for it. HBO, because Warner Brothers, they own it. Warner Brothers made all sorts of short-lived television shows. Brimstone is owned by Warner Brothers. I love Brimstone. If they would add that, if they literally once a month rotated, here's a short-lived TV show made by Warner Brothers Television, subscribe to HBO Max and you can watch it for this month.
Oh,
One
yeah.
month do Brimstone, 1 month do the Night About the Nine earlier. I was like, I remember watching it and going, oh, that's interesting. I'd like to see it again. I can't do that. Whereas back when there were video stores, you might have had to drive to one that actually had it, but it existed somewhere. You could find it.
My love of Due South. Can't watch it anywhere.
Well,
And
even
this is a
thinking
very
about what
esoteric problem. Of course, most of the people who are listening to us probably have the same problem because they're esoteric people. But most people aren't looking for Lars von Trier's The Kingdom. Another one would be the early 90s Dark Shadows, James. I was trying to think off the top of my head. The one with Ben Cross. Probably there's only a half a dozen of us that'd like to reset through that.
Yeah.
Here's another one. V from 80s. The Blu-ray is outrageous. The DVD is kind of expensive. You can buy the series, but the actual two movies, you have to go on eBay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I mean. So I think that's kind of what I think about is, and we veered off of your thing about the movies aren't good, but I think that
some of them are.
I know.
But no, the problem
my
is
point being
Joe, some of them are, but they are greatly outweighed by the ones that aren't.
Every time I watch one, I end up sitting there going, man.
I watched Spencer Confidential and I still don't understand why that. Yeah. Are we getting a sequel to that? Huh?
I don't even know what that is. Is that
it's Mark Wahlberg's movie adapt TV? It's Spencer for Hire.
Oh, there you go.
My argument, I guess, is that we have tons of choice without choice.
The man who plays the dad in Us is no Avery Brooks. That's all I'm saying. James.
But no, nobody is Avery Brooks except Avery Brooks. But no, that's honestly it. I think that's where I get angry sometimes if I stop to think about it is I get told, oh, look, you have all these choices as long as you subscribe. And even things that I like to watch. I like a lot of British comedies. I can watch the IT Crowd is thankfully still on Netflix. I don't know if Black Book still is or not, but like Waiting for God, good luck finding it.
Yeah.
And again, all these things. So I get aggravated when everybody's like, well, you have more choice than you ever had before. I'm like, no,
you have subdivisions of choices that you have to pay extra money for to see those.
And
but
even
I still
then,
say that you probably did. You really do still have more choice than you ever did before. I mean, especially because you're not limited geographically to like having to drive to Louisville.
And the other thing is too, you're not having to record things. They're on there.
Yeah.
You don't have to. There's cartoons. I got to watch Bobby's World on Amazon Prime. Granted, it didn't hold up, but I got to watch it.
But the counter argument to that is that back to, and once they decide to take it off, that you lose it, which goes back to see our previous episode of buy the IP, the intellectual property.
Yeah.
It's right over there on the shelf,
That's
as
why
my
I
friend
buy all
James
my
would say.
I buy all my cartoons.
Well, and that's it.
Over
But
there
I
on the
think that's it.
shelf.
I think that's what gets to me is that I feel like I have the choice as long as the choice is within the decision of these corporations.
Yes,
Right?
that's
what I
absolutely
have.
correct.
Mhm.
As long as HBO Max wants me to have the Warner Brothers item that they will put out, then I'm allowed to have it, as long as they stream it during that month.
Yep.
But if I want something else, and it happens to be, as Joe says, their IP, their intellectual property, good luck, you ain't getting it. And your best option is, sadly, a bootleg,
Yes.
which is even getting harder to find because people, the amount of people who tell me, I don't even own a Blu-ray player. I'm like, I said, why? Why wouldn't you own a Blu-ray player? I don't need
Because
it.
they're
It's
not
awesome.
nerds. Actually, I think Disney Plus has done a pretty good job of this, especially as a Star Wars fan. I had
I give 'em
memories of droids and Ewoks, and God, they're awful. But at least I can now look at them and say, God, they're awful.
I actually
And the
will agree
Muppet
with that.
Show, they finally got the Muppet Show. all on
Muppet
there.
Show, I will agree with that. I will actually also agree Marvel. I mean, they have Spider-Man and his amazing friends.
Yeah,
Thank God they have Silver Surfer, which is terrible.
Yeah. They
that
have
80s Spider-Man
multiverse-
cartoon. My kid has watched it like 3 times, and honestly, it's one of my. I know it's 80s, but I actually kind of like it.
Yeah.
They only did the 1 season.
No, I remember watching all that stuff. I mean, because it was a big deal when those cartoons came out. Because back in the day, kids, we didn't have a new Marvel movie every year, or every 6 months, or every 3 months.
All right,
So-
we probably need to start wrapping it up, gentlemen.
Yeah, we're
No,
starting
I-
to ramble.
It's
But
over
no,
an hour.
That's all I was going to say is I feel like we're the corporations, and not that I'm anti-corporation. I'm not a communist or anything. Please don't put me on your list, Mr. McCarthy. Anyway, but I just feel like there's the choice is not what the choice could be. And I know there's only so much bandwidth. I know I'm not going to get Brimstone. I know I'm not going to get. But I do
James,
miss
don't
some
ever
of it.
say that. We will eventually get Brimstone. We have to.
They literally did an interview. Somebody asked them about it at one of their things that's been a couple of years ago. And they literally said, we are aware that until there used to be a website called TV to DVD. The website is now quit. Until that website closed, Brimstone was in the top 10 from its premiere or from its cancellation till it shut down. It remained in the top 10 of shows people wanted on DVD. Never, and they even said, and I said this a few years ago, that the Warner Brothers said we have no plans to release that on DVD. And I'm like, why are you turning down my money? I get it, you don't want to press 1,000 of them. Put it as part of that Warner Brothers archives, like you did the History of Mankind that I lovingly paid $20 for because it's the Marx Brothers and Dennis Hopper. That's fine. Do it print on demand. I'll still pay for it, which is what bootlegging basically is. But they won't do it. So anyway.
All right, guys. Well, this has been Bonehead Weekly. Thank you so much for listening to Middle-Aged Men Bitch Why They Have to Buy Streaming Services.
They're already here. They don't really give you choice.